Totally. We're continuing our quest on information on surfing injuries, and we're interviewing Rick, one of the co-owners of the Tavarua Island Resort. And Rick, can you tell us, how long have you been around this area and these islands?
About 14 years now.
And I imagine in those 14 years you've seen just about everything in terms of injuries. Tell me what you see as the most common type of injury that occurs with surfers that are here vacationing and surfing.
Most common injury would be hitting the reef, and I guess getting lacerations, a lot of reef cuts.
Okay.
Okay.
Rick, we were talking about lacerations, and those being one of the more common injuries that you see on with the surfers that are surfing over the reefs here. How do you typically treat the lacerations that surfers come in with here?
Depends on how bad it is. If it's something that we can butterfly up, or just take care of. I'm not good. I don't know. Okay, start from the beginning.
Okay, once again, we're on our continuing quest for information on surfing injuries, and we're interviewing Rick, one of the co-owners of the Tavarua Island Resort. And Rick, how long have you been around these islands?
For about 14 years now.
I imagine these 14 years you've seen quite a few injuries.
Yeah, I've seen a few, and I've acquired quite a few myself.
What type of injury is the most common injury that you see for surfers that are surfing on the reefs here?
By far the most common would be just hitting the reef, and a lot of lacerations, and many different types of abrasions and bruising, and there's also a lot of lacerations caused by surfboards as well, surfboard fins and various things like that. But for the most part, it'd be reef.
Now, you've mentioned that occasionally you're butterflying these. Do you often times have to suture these lacerations as well?
Yeah, we've done quite a few lacerations. We've got a pretty big supply of sutures and things on the island, but we pretty much take care of it now by sending them into town to a doctor there that does a real good job.
About how often, how many times a year do you have to send people off island for laceration repair?
Every swell.
That's fairly, and I imagine that's fairly common on Tavarua. Yeah. Now, have you ever had head injuries or serious head injuries occur?
Oh yeah, quite a few, where we've had to sea collar them and backboard them in the whole works. And we've medevaced quite a few people with helicopters as well.
And they're medevaced to
Lautoka Hospital. Yeah, it's just about a 15-minute flight from here. Okay. And they'll come land right on the reef where we're surfing if it's low tide, or on the beach here at any tide.
Okay. And if they require care beyond the local facilities, what's the next step?
Trying to get them a flight out. Not always an easy thing if you've got to have a stretcher on one of the international flights. I think Fred, this last week, it took him 3 or 4 days to get a Air New Zealand flight.
Right, and that was a flight direct to LA. Do you ever evacuate people to New Zealand?
Yeah, that is an alternative route. It all depends on what's available flight-wise. But whatever option is there, we prefer to go to the U.S.
Now, we've talked about lacerations, head injuries, and spinal cord injuries or neck injuries. And
here's some of our friends. These are the guys that medevac us out.
Here's a medevac helicopter in the background now.
Speak of the devil. They're just checking the damage. Rob McKenzie. That's our medical helicopter right there. I got pictures of him already.
Cool. That was a bigger helicopter than some of the other time. Rick, what can you tell us about infections that occur on following injuries here?
Very, very high infection rate. I think just the climate is a perfect incubator for just about everything. Staff being probably the most ideal. everything goes off. And you got to take care of it from day one.
Right, and do you use antibiotics for these?
Only if we have to. Preventative care is the best, and we've found that there's different types of way of dealing with the staff, and we tend to like to keep them covered rather than do the air thing. There's a lot of controversy over that, but we found that Bactroban works really well. We used to go with a dry powdered type Neosporin. They used to for real surface abrasions, for just the skin being scratched. We tend to go for the dry Neosporin powder. In the tropics, being so moist, that really dries up real fast. For deeper stuff, we use Bactroban. I think it's so far one of the best things that I found for staff. And keeping it covered, and then after that, just changing the dressings regularly. And we actually do, while during the day, we keep it covered, and in the evening, we air it. And we found that to be the best combo.
Now, Rick, a few years ago, I understand you suffered an eye injury. Can you tell us what happened with that?
Was out surfing and bottomed out in a pretty good size tube, and I can contribute that to a bad leash. I just broke a board about a half hour previous, and ran back and just got a board with a kind of a funky leash, and it was a really good session. And didn't waste any time getting back out there, but compromised on my equipment. And the leash I had was a real old one. And anyway, I was locked in this pretty good sized wave, and bottomed out. And normally you just pop right out the back, and my board was getting pulled off my ankles, so I reached down to grab my leash, and while I did that, I compromised getting out the back and got sucked back into it and got tangled up with my board, and the actual fin speared my eyeball and lacerated, I think, 13 millimeters of my eyeball, and but they're able to stitch it with 22 stitches internal. They pull the eyeball to the side, and they stitch the back side of it up.
Is that why you never removed your sunglasses?
Something like that.
No, Rick had a good recovery from this injury. You have good eyesight now, right?
Yeah, I actually injured my good eye. It took 8 months to recover from that injury. I saw double for about 6 months, and had a patch on my eye for quite a few months. And through the process of recovering, using my good eye all the time, I strained it and lost vision in my good eye, and got full vision back in the injured eye. That's a whole nother hour story in itself, but it's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, we're talking about eyes. Let's touch on ears for just a minute. I would assume there's a fair frequency of ear injuries here as well, or at least ear infections. Is that another problem you see?
Yeah, actually, it's real common. A lot of people are getting the ear infections from diving, and a few have also perforated eardrums from just hitting the water at high velocities. And we've also had a reverse block as well, where while diving, the person's eardrum blew out, trying to clear, coming back up. Going down, it was clearing fine, but coming back up, it wouldn't, and blew out an eardrum that way as well.
Okay. Rick, we want to thank you for your time and interesting stories on surfing injuries.
It's too easy.
That's what we told you.
Okay. Got off easy.
Thanks now.
You're welcome. My pleasure.